Kabuki is a style of Japanese theater involving elaborate makeup and dancing. It is believed to be derived from the verb kabuku, which means to lean. That would explain some of the bizarre movements and such as seen while looking into this style of theater. Quantum, while taking on a few different meanings, it is used in this game scientifically as a matter of manifestation. And finally, we have fighter, a person with the will, courage, determination, ability, or disposition to fight, struggle, resist, etc. Put all these words together and you have a title for an NES game. So in a sense, the title could be Theatrical Manifested Fighter, which I admit doesn't sound as cool, but would I still play it? You bet your rosy red ass. Kabuki Quantum Fighter was released in Japan in 1990 and made its way to the US in 91. It is called Jigoku Gokuraku Maru in Japan, the words meaning hell, heaven, and circle. The Famicom version was translated to English in 2013 and they have the title listed as The Circle of Heaven and Hell, which is a pretty badass name. But that title definitely wouldn't have cut it in the US back in the 90s. So when coming to America, it was renamed Kabuki Quantum Fighter, and now sounds more Japanese than it did in Japan. Kinda interesting, huh? Between the two versions, the sprite work in the game mostly remains the same along with the story, with slight variations in some cutscenes, as your hero on the Famicom is one of Japanese descent, and in the US version, you're a generic white dude named Scott O'Connor. But besides the cutscenes, all of the level sprites are the same. The game was developed by Human Entertainment, who had churned out mini releases. It was the year 2000 when they declared themselves bankrupt after failing to negotiate a restructuring deal over their outstanding debt, which was around 4 billion yen, which in today's world is 35 million US dollars. Yikes. Kind of a shame. This company was considered pioneers, and were responsible for the first music rhythm game that was made back in 1987, Dance Aerobics. And they made some of the first survival horror adventure games such as Le Place Nomad and the Clock Tower series. For the NES though, they didn't have much going for them, other than Gilligan's Island and Monster Party. Those are the two most notable games in the 6 they had released. Rest in peace, Human Entertainment. Now the publisher of this game, HAL Laboratory, is far from bankrupt. You'll recognize them as one of the best developers of awesome games. They made my favorite Super Nintendo game, Earthbound, a huge list of Kirby games including the Amazing Nintendo one, and we can't forget the Smash Bros. Franchise, probably my favorite of all fighting games. They definitely develop more games than they publish, but Kabuki Quantum Fighter was one on that list. Alright, let's jump into the game. So in the year 2056, someone or something broke into the main defense computer system of the planet. The virus is blocking access to the backup system. With fear of the virus launching nuclear weapons and reducing the world to cinders, the game quickly jumps to the conclusion that they will need to use a technology just being developed. What is this technology, you ask? Is it a paid subscription to Norton Antivirus? Well, no it's not. They call it the Image Transfer System. It can take a human mind and convert it into binary code to send into a computer system. The game then goes into questions such as what will happen to the human psyche? What form will the human take inside the system? Well, they are not sure, so they put good old Scott O'Connor to the test. A 25-year-old dude that looks like he just got off his bike after his paper route. I must admit though, he does have a certain charm about him. It must be his beautiful green eyes that match his uniform so well. It is explained that he is trained in body and mind and knows about computer hardware. So upon stretching himself out on the machine, he enters the computer, and the form he takes is a Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Which I don't really get, but yeah, whatever. This sums up your mission. There will be more cutscenes and such throughout the game that will explain the obstacles you're facing and give you new missions. It's all pretty far out, but let's talk about the gameplay. Kabuki Quantum Fighter is an action platformer that takes great liberty on making its levels more vertical than horizontal. It feels like seldomly you will ever feel the safety of stable ground under you. It uses many mechanics such as ice, conveyor belts, and streams of water that are always challenging your movements or hindering them. It goes as far as to make single blocks into conveyor belts, never making your jumps or your platforming a breeze. In some parts of the game, it will also use the game's clock to push you through the dangers all the quicker. The best way I can describe what this game is doing is by saying it's putting you through obstacle courses. There are parts where you'll be jumping in succession, and if at any point you fall or fail, you most likely will have to run backwards or scale yourself all the way back up while avoiding the previous dangers you already had encountered. To further solidify this, there are really no checkpoints. If you die on a screen, you will be put back to the beginning of that screen to replay and learn from your mistakes. The one thing nice is, if you die in a boss room, they'll keep you in the boss room. The game doesn't go super far out to punish you, but it doesn't necessarily give you any easy breaks. I consider myself a pretty good NES player, and this game definitely gave me a challenge, which I always welcome. It took me 2 playthroughs before finally beating it. The biggest obstacle to overcome is getting used to the movement and knowing the layouts of the levels. There are a lot of spots where you'll be jumping at the very edge of platforms, and like I said earlier, most of them are always moving under you. Get good with your jumps and your timing, and all the quicker you will be to master this game. But know this. You start with 2 lives, and you only have 2 continues. The good thing is there are only 5 levels, and then level 6 is the final boss fight. So when I finally did get a grip on this game, it took around 45 minutes to beat. Scott attacks with his long flowing red hair. It acts as a whip. You also have secondary abilities which you can cycle through with the select button. To use these abilities, they consume chips, which is a bar below your life. Throughout levels, by killing enemies, they sometimes will drop chips, health pickups, and sometimes a very rare 1-up. I think I found 2 extra lives in this entire game. I found it wise to try to save your chips for the boss fights, though there are some opportune times and stages where you can avoid taking damage and make it easier on yourself by using your special abilities. You start with one pretty basic ability, and as you beat levels, Scott is granted new more powerful abilities. Not all of them consume the same amount of chips, some powers require more of your bar than others, so don't get too willy-nilly throughout the level wasting your chips in hope of making the game easier. However, pro tip, which I wasn't aware of while I was playing until I later looked at the instruction manual. While you're in a boss fight, you can pause the game, and by using up or down on the D-pad, you can exchange life for chips or vice versa. While not personally being able to try this out, I know for certain it would have helped me on an occasion or 2. So now knowing a bit more about the game, I definitely would say try it out if you're up for a challenge. If you're a fan of Ninja Gaiden, I can almost say for certain you'll enjoy this title. It has great music and the graphics are pretty damn good. There are lots of sprites that fill out the backgrounds of stages and make the environments around you feel engrossing. The common enemies can act sporadic, and most are not pushovers. Same goes for the bosses, some very fast-paced, engaging fights. So with that said, keep on your toes, don't act a jabroni, and good luck. This has been Late Night Retro. Thank you for watching. Until next time.